All right, let's get started. The agenda is pretty simple today. I'm going to give you some detail on a couple of things that we've been working toward over the last 2 weeks, and now this will be the third week. But before we begin, the webinar basics are really simple. We're going to cover USign and GIF-sign today, not MockSign or LogoSign. I can't answer support questions. That's the reason why I always like to have Rose on, because she can throw in the extra support questions. Hi, Chuck. And your questions are very, very important, and understand that they really are important to me, important enough that I go back and I read all of the comments that are made so that I don't miss anything. And if a question was asked that I missed, I will be sure to include it in the next week's webinar. But sometimes it requires some preparation to answer the question. I need to do a screen capture, I need to get an image from someplace, or there's just a lot of things connected with that. So that's the reason why they have to relate to today's topic. I mentioned this last week, and I'm going to say it again this week. I looked back, I had 900 images from the 1st of January that I've included in these webinars. So it takes a little preparation to do that. It takes just a little preparation. So if you have a question and I can't answer it today, it's not that it's not important. It's just that it sometimes requires a little bit of prep for that. Okay. And then finally, Rose is going to give you a link. I believe she can give you a link. She's on. Good morning, Rose. Glad to have you on with us today. So always good to see Rose. We're going to talk about Rose a little bit today. We talk about Rose a lot because she's an amazing person. And so we will we'll be sharing some things from Rose today. Okay. The next thing is, I really like to do this I kind of like to get set in a mindset of creativity as we kick off the webinar. And so today, my comment is, creativity is putting your imagination to work. I'm gonna stop right there for a second because there's a comma and it's in the quote, but it really is using your imagination. The greatest tool that you have for problem solving is using your imagination. And I can't emphasize enough how important that problem solving skill is. And using your imagination is key to solving problems. And then the rest of it, I'll take a look at the rest of the quote. And it's produced the most extraordinary results in human culture. I totally agree with that. The creativity that comes from using your imagination, the tool that every one of us has produced some incredible, extraordinary results in human culture. So let's get in the creative mindset as we get started today. Okay. The next thing is, I want to go down through some of these things that are from the community. Rose has posted for us a blog post this week, a new blog this week. We had one a couple of weeks ago. We did a webinar on that one. I'm going to mention those tools today, so this won't be completely devoted to this layering tool, but it will be included in today's webinar. So this is a great blog. If you're not reading the blog post, you're missing out. Rose does a great job, and if you want to learn how to write a blog, follow what Rose does in the blog post here. I think you'll find it to be a very, very amazing addition to the other things that we provide for you so that you can master the skills that you have. Okay. So this is the new blog post. Tell me in the chat how many of you have read that blog post. Just put a Y or a yes or something. Give me some indication that you've read that already. Good. All right, cool. Yeah, Rose writes these. We take a look at it. It's just, she does a great job. She does a great job. And again, blending together the tools, the other things that we have, and she does a wonderful job. She took this is a good example. The graphic that you see right there is a good example of the layering tool, as those things layered on top of each other. And we've done the layering tool. We took a stack of books and we put them together and we shaded them. We did all the kind of cool stuff with that. So layering tool is a very, very important tool that we have, and the capability of being able to do I think some rather extraordinary things. Okay. So this is a really, really good blog post, and they are a great, as Martin says, they're a great inspiration for our benefit frequently. Okay. The next thing is, I want to mention also a second blog post that Rose had written, and this one I just happened to see. I was putting together the pieces for today, And I looked over to the side when I was looking at the blog post, and I saw this one about typography, because that was really kind of what we're going to focus on today. So I put these two back to back, and when you're reading one, always kind of look around, see if there's something else that maybe you missed, or yes, Terry, that was a great one, by the way. I agree with you that those comments about typography were really, really important. All right. This one, and I put this in today for this reason, okay? When we were talking about creativity is putting your imagination to work, Mark posted this, and Mark, if you're on, this is I'm just sharing this with the community, okay? Mark posted this, and he said, "Are we stuck with this drab blue background?" Now, anytime I see the word stuck, my hair catches on fire. I'm sorry, but that word, there's two words that just ignite me. And the first one is stuck, and the second one is mediocre. Those are two words I just can't have in my vocabulary. And I can't have people saying that they're happy with mediocrity, and I can't have people saying that they're stuck. Okay, so those are two things that just drive me crazy. And Mark made this post, and this has nothing to do with Mark. Okay, please understand that. It's just that's what happened to me the moment that I saw that word. And so I don't believe that we're ever stuck. The only time that I'm stuck is when I'm in a traffic jam and I can't back up, I can't turn left, I can't turn right, and I can't go forward. Then I'm stuck. Every other time, I'm good. We're gonna make it work, okay? So Mark had made this post, and he says, "Are we stuck with this drab blue background?" By the way, I love that preview. How many of you saw this preview for the YouTube covers? I love that preview. It shows you what needs to be seen, and that is that the YouTube covers were designed, and YouTube made this the size that they need to be. YouTube made that the size it needs to be so that it will look good on a big screen TV. And I've begun spending more time watching YouTube on television than anywhere else. So I really like that. I like the fact that they've done that. But this is a great way to preview that. All right. So what I did was real simple. I downloaded the preview. I uploaded it back into my platform and used the delete tool. This is the easiest delete I've ever seen because we don't have any blending colors. We have contrasting colors. We have a black border around most things. We have a very darker gray border around everything else, and then the background, boom, it's gone. Very easy to do. So we just removed the background from it, and in about 20 seconds, we're done. Okay, the video demonstrating how to do this took me less than a minute. So took me just a little over a minute because I'm talking, but this was don't get stuck. Don't ever get stuck. Put your imagination to work and find a solution. Okay, the next thing I want to show you, and this was a post from Joanna last week. Joanna posted this just as quickly as we got off. Actually, I think she posted it while we were doing the webinar. And Joanna's a dear friend of mine, and I'll have to tell her that she needs to pay better attention to me while I'm going, so that no, I wouldn't do that to her ever. But she is a dear friend. So I want to show you this. This is Joanna's, and I'm going to play this. I've created this as a GIF, okay? So you can see this, all right? I'm going to scroll up through this so you can see that. This is how you use a GIF to give an explanation, okay? Couldn't think of the word explanation all of a sudden. But this is, what I did was I screen captured this, created a GIF out of it. And I posted, and I'm dead serious about this. I was very disappointed that nobody said, what's your end goal with the, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? with the with the visual that you have? What are you trying to accomplish with it? Now, obviously, I'm a little bit confused about what she's trying to accomplish simply because she wrote in a language that's not English. And so I was immediately lost. But Joanna did a nice job putting this together. This is a flyer. I wanted somebody to say that's a nice flyer, Joanna, because it's a flyer. That's what it is. And I wanted somebody to say, so what's your purpose? So, because you always do what? Tell me in the chat, what am I always asking you to do? Always. I'm always asking you to do something. Put it in the chat. What is it I'm always asking you to do? Begin with the end in mind. So I was really hoping somebody would ask her, so what's your end game? What's the end goal? What do you want to accomplish with the flyer? Because that's the place to start. I can't give honestly. I can't do this, and you've seen me answer the questions this way. So, what was your purpose? What did you intend to do? What do you want to accomplish with that? Because if you start there, then I know how to evaluate this. Does that make sense to everybody? Nobody asked that question. And I had people tell me, and again, these are, I can talk, I'll mention this because he's my friend. Danny said, it's because it's perfect. I don't know that because I don't know what the end game is. I got to know what the end game is. It's so important to know, what did you want to accomplish with this? Not even the call to action. I just wanted to know, what is she going to do with it? Are you going to print these off, take them to an event? Are you going to hand these out when you go to a networking meeting? Or what is the end game with this? What do you want to call? And so, in essence, what you're saying, Eric, is correct. I am asking about what's the call to action, but I want to know what do you want to accomplish with this? Because, and we're going to look at some things in just a minute that will help you with that. Okay, so let's move on. I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right. Here is this, and this is Tony's thing over here. Okay, this is Tony's we took this apart the other day. We took a look at Tony's visual, and now we've put right beside it Joanna's visual. The first thing that I noticed is that her visual on my phone took the whole screen. So it's going to have to be used for something other than, do you understand this? Has to be used for something other than on Facebook, because I can't read what's up here at the top. So it's a great looking flyer. By the way, it's a great looking flyer. But it's a flyer. And if I knew that it was a flyer, then I would have had a different approach to it. Does that make sense? Are y'all following with me? Because again, I love Joanna. This is not a criticism of her event at all. I just wanted to know what's the end game. Because as the end game, this does more on a Facebook ad than this does. That's the point I'm trying to make. I want to know what's the purpose. And the purpose is never going to be universal. Did you get that? Tony used this as a business card, and you did a great job down here. If I posted this on Facebook, then Facebook's going to limit my reach because of the amount of text that's on it. Make sense? Facebook's going to very much limit the reach here because of the amount of text that's on it. It's what I want you to understand from that, okay? That makes sense to everybody? I'm trying to get a message across here that the place to begin is with the end. And that's the reason why I wanted somebody to ask the question. I didn't respond quickly. As a matter of fact, I waited for several days to respond because I wanted somebody to see the end game. And yes, it is. It's a classic flyer, and I understand that. I knew that when I saw it because it is a classic flyer. But I wanted to make sure that y'all understood that I have to know that. I have to know that. And all of us have to know that, because that's going to make a difference. I can't I can't take this and slightly modify it and use it like in a Facebook string. I just can't do that because yet, in answer to Eric's question, Facebook does limit. They stopped blocking you from advertising. They just stop sending it to people. They'll still take your money, but they won't send it to anybody. It's a 20% text rule is the rule that Facebook uses, is that anything that's got more than 20% of the image is covered with text, they start limiting the reach that you get with it. Okay. The next thing is, don't forget to post. I'm not doing this to criticize the post, but don't forget to post. Make sure that you post. Put your images in there. We'll give you a shout out. We'll take a look at them. We'll do the stuff that we did with these right here. Make sure that we give you a big shout out, but don't forget to post. Make sure that you post your stuff in the group, and we'll get a chance. And people gave Joanna a lot of love for her image here. Lots of people had questions about this one, so it's really, really good when you do that. This helps the entire community to grow. All right, everybody good with that? I have one more that I wanted to do, and a reason why I saved this one for last, after we talked about posting, is because Tony did this. Tony had run into an issue. Tony's on with us this morning, but Tony had run into an issue, and he discovered something because he kept working at it till he figured it out. And that's what I want you to see. Put your imagination to work. Find out. Check it out. And I love to do this. This is my favorite thing to do. Is I love to talk about Clickology, because the only way you're going to find out is to just keep clicking till you get the answer. I have people who will send me private messages and say, "What happens if I click here?" And I just want to scream back, "Click and find out." Just click and find out. So that's what Tony did. He asked the question, and then he continued to click until he found out. Congratulations, Tony. You win the award today, the Clickology award today, awarded to you by me for clicking further until you got the answer. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You were my inspiration and my hero today, Tony, for just that simple little thing there. Okay. All right. The next thing that we want to talk about this morning is make sure you tag things Friday Webby. I've only had a couple of people do that, but I want to make sure that if you have an opportunity, or you have a question or something that comes up in the group, just tag it with the hashtag Friday Webby, and we'll be sure to either create a video at the moment and put it in the group, or we will include it in the next Friday's webinar. Okay. And I'm serious about this because I just noticed I have a one platform that I make a lot of these little videos that I post in the group there. Make a lot of videos there. And the other day I looked to see on Tuesday of last week, I crossed number 600 on that platform. So I've made 600 of those step-by-step videos, both in this group and one other group that I'm active in. So I'm eager to do that, obviously, because in the last year and a half, I've made 600 videos there. So okay, let's get back to where we were at in the last couple of weeks. We've been talking about 4 simple parts that are part of your graphic design, regardless of what they are. And this one was just simply a Facebook group post. And so it had a single purpose. And I wanted to communicate something clearly with this. This one over here, obviously this was about growing. We've grown to 5,000 members here. This was a blog post header, and that's the way I make my blog post headers. And I do every blog post header exactly the same way. And when I settled on what I wanted to do, I made 28 of those in an hour and a half. I told you about that. We walked through the process of that and all of those kinds of things. And then this one over here, this was another Facebook post. I had to make it a little smaller so it fit, but it's another it's a standard typical Facebook post. But there's 4 parts to those things. All right. Every one of them has 4 parts. They have a background. And we took the background apart, and we did a whole webinar on how important the background was. And then last week we started to look at the foreground, and we took the tools that Rose had posted that blog post about. We took those and we showed how those tools could make the background and the foreground better. Today I want to focus on this one. Anybody ever feel like that? They just don't have my font. And here's the problem with this. And I had somebody the other day that threw I share my experiences with you, okay? They just threw an ever-loving fit because out of the 720 fonts that were available on the platform that they had, it didn't have the one font that they wanted. Nobody's business ever went down the tube because you didn't have the perfect font. All right? Most people will never ever recognize and can't recall the font that was used. All they want to know is, can I read it? Now, I'm not settling for mediocrity. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But I think sometimes we pull our hair out over something that we don't have to do that with. And branding has gotten more people in trouble over this than any other topic in the marketing arena. And that is, you have to have the perfect font in the perfect color in the perfect size. And none of the above is true. You need to have a font that works. Yeah, Stephanie, welcome to the club. I've done that. And it's because somewhere they heard somebody talk about branding. Probably somebody who's working at the shoe store full-time and doing graphics on the side, who has put this emphasis on you have to have the perfect font. Now, let me give you a little business insight, okay? And this is, I go back to my background. 25 years ago, I was running around the country doing color. I was doing seminars on wood finishes and how to color match wood finishes. But when I was tasked with the responsibility of creating a color, I would make it so it could never be reproduced. I would make it so it could never be reproduced. Did you all get that? Are you paying attention? I made it so it could never be reproduced. And sometimes these branding people will put such a focus on something, they're doing it to hang on to a position. Now, if I created a color, I would make sure that that color was something that nobody could ever reproduce. Exactly. Yes, because I was trying to make sure that I had a job. Does that make any sense to anybody? That's not crooked. I get it. I understand it. You know, and if you've got a set of kitchen cabinets and I created the finish for that, and you want another cabinet, guess who you're going to have to call? I did it on purpose. And I wasn't trying to be mean when I did that. It was unique. Now, when I decided to not do that anymore, yes, Glenn, when I decided to not do that anymore, then I would give them the exact formula that I used to create it. Okay. And I'll tell you what I did. This is just a secret. I'll tell you exactly what I did. What I did was I would add a metal flake color to the wood color. So if somebody wanted cherry, I would add a copper metal flake to it. And they would say, whatever is in that, I've never seen anything that's that rich. So this branding thing, and you have to have this particular font, sometimes is attached to something, okay? I knew somebody was going to ask me, you added what? I added a metal flake color. And you can get them at Michael's or at the Hobby Lobby. And they just simply come in a little bottle, and it's called metal flake color something or other. I have 3 of them that used to be on my desk till my 4-year-old grandson came and decided to rearrange all the stuff on my desk. But yeah, that's where that comes from. So make sure that you don't understand that, okay? I agree, Stephen. Font designers will say that it's art and science, but in my humble opinion, it's clouds for most of it. It's just true. Okay, so don't let people pull their hair out over the font. It's okay. All right. The next one is, I want to talk about the preview mode just a little bit when we open up the canvas, and then finally, I want to also talk about the layering tool. And I just had this original image up here, and I thought I'm just going to throw some stuff on top of it, and I'm going to layer it all over the place, and then we're going to look at it. Okay, so we'll play with the layering tool, and I'll show you what it indicates when we do that. All right, and then let's see, what else do we have here? I want to show you a little thing about images when we open up the canvas. I have a little graphic here for you. This question comes up a lot, so I decided I would include it in today's webinar. All right. So watch this very carefully. We're going to go to Pixabay. I'm going to type in, I'm going to show you that we have high definition. You can get but you see the high definition button that pops up. If you need to have that image in high def, then you can do it in high def, okay? I mean, people forget that high def is there. That goes back to Tony's question earlier. When you have the ability to get high def images, you want to make sure that you do that, okay? Yeah, the high def button is right there. See it? Did you see that, Steph? Yeah, now the question also comes up frequently, well, do I have the rights to use this? Do you see the little I button that's there? And you'll see this, okay? See, when I scroll across here, see the little I button on the right-hand side? If you click on that I button, that gives you the info about that video or about that image, and it will tell you whether there is any attribution required at all. All right? Every once in a while, people, can you guarantee? Nope, just click on the I button. And that's where it came from, and you need to follow that dictates. I don't let people put me in a box about those kinds of things, okay? Not when the information's right there. So always take a look at that, check that out. And that's really all I'm going to say about the images right now. I just wanted you to see that. So here, if I want you to notice something, these 2 incredibly effective ads, as we talk about fonts, these 2 incredibly effective ads, and remember, 26,000 shares, 7,000 comments, almost 8,000 comments. The next week, those numbers had more than doubled. I just didn't screen capture. I'm sorry, but this is very plain stuff up here. This, by the way, also is a layer on top of an image. So back to the layering that we were talking about. But look how simple do you see how simple this is? This is a simple font. It's easy for people to see. It's easy for them to read. Does this have to match her brand? It doesn't make any difference what her brand is. People could read it. They're going to scroll past it. It's on social media. Get it close, but it doesn't have to be a perfect match. I think we lose our mind over things that don't matter. Now, flip side of that is, look at this. This font right here, I don't care if it did match their brand. It doesn't work because I can't read it. Does that make sense? While I grab something to drink, does that make sense? Now over here we have a really simple. This is a couple of fonts. All right, this font is just smaller one of this, and it's not bolded. But we have very simple font in a red color on top of this background. And look at this, been shared 182 times. And this is a brand new ad, but very effective compared to this one over here, which accomplished nothing. All right. Now I want to show you one. Those of you who have followed me anywhere other than on Usign know that I spend a lot of time at this coffee shop. This is one of my favorite places to hang out. They ran this morning, and it was blowing up. I'm an admin on their group, and so my phone was literally blowing up with people competing in this competition. Okay, and this is their little Friday the 13th competition. They do this every Friday. People have come to expect it. Within 1 hour, look at this. Within 1 hour, 403 people had seen that ad, and 34 people had commented already. This is the simplest graphic I ever saw in my life. But it was a graphic combined with a text up here that people were expecting. Does that make sense to everybody? Don't try to make your graphic, this is a phrase we used to use all the time, walk on all fours. It's part of what you do, okay? And I'll be really happy with these kind of results. Then we're going to open up the canvas. We'll get into some tricks and tips and tools and things here. So let me do that right now. Let me jump over here and stop sharing that screen, and I will, okay. I appear to be frozen. All right, if I disappear for a second, y'all hang on, I'll be right back, I promise. There we go, it updated, so just hang on. I will, I'll be right with you. I'm gonna switch my screen here. It has to find the new screen. Okay, give me just a second. All right, this is the graphic that we're going to look at. We're going to look at, I have two of these open this morning for this. Let me get the chat back. I have two that I'll have open here for just a little bit this morning. These are the two, I wanted you to see these. These are the two blog posts that I was talking about earlier from Rose, okay? This is the typography tips, and this was back in the fall of last year. And then this is where you find the recent blog post over here. And this is the one that she did today. And you can see the layering tool here. You can see how she did that in this graphic. Always kind of cool when you can do that in the graphic that you're going to show, okay? Let's go back over here. I'm going to put this down for right now so I can play with this for just a little bit. We're going to play with the font and talk about layering just a little bit, okay? Let me get this as far over here so I can still see the chat. All right, so what I have here, I just took a graphic there. Let's talk about the font first, okay? So let me get these things out of the way here. And then we'll talk about layering following that. Get this out of the way. All right. Let me ask you this. Does that font work for the message that we have here? Does that font work? We're getting all kinds of answers here. I'm going to go with it works, okay? There are things that we can do to this font, obviously, but the font works. It does what I want it to do. And all I wanted it to do was to be in the way. It's just communicating. Again, the font's necessary because the message, if I remove this, does anybody have any idea what we're talking about? No, but I need to be able to read it. And so this is far preferable to, let me give you another example here, okay? This is far preferable to that. Okay, but although that might work if we could use that, but look, let's go down here, because these become some of the things that people will do sometimes. Okay, I'm looking for my great question, Sylvie. I really like that question. Okay, I really like that question, Sylvia. I'm gonna talk about this. She asked, "What about all caps?" So let's go back over here and we'll pick a font, and then we'll put it in all caps. Okay. So that if I take this same thing and I put it in all caps, well, I thought I had changed my font. Yeah, they don't have my font. Now, when I do that, you know what I've done? I've made it harder to read. We didn't learn to read in all caps. We learned to read with the first word being capitalized. So I kind of agree with what you all are saying here. So let's do this. Now we can do this with the font. Let's change that. We'll do this. Now that kind of that tends to make that a little bit better. I could take this word right here. Let's see if we can do this while we're live. And I can make that just that word, but now I can't make, I have to make the whole word bold. Okay. And I agree with you, Sylvie. Sometimes when you capitalize everything, it's like screaming. Okay. And I prefer not to do that. Yeah, and you can change this. Don't would be would have one emphasis. Font would be a different emphasis. And in this case, the don't's not nearly as important to the conversation we had earlier as if I did this. See, that really kind of emphasizes what we were talking about earlier. So that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that sometimes you can do things with the font regardless of what the style is, okay? And you could italicize it. Again, now we're starting to venture into the personal preferences, but I wanted you to see that when you're talking about a font, there are things that you can do, okay? And you can, you don't feel like you're stuck that it has to be this specific font. Instead, it's what you're communicating with. And I believe Stephen said it right here. Trying to communicate an emotion. We're communicating an emotion. And the purpose of this is frustration. So I want to communicate the emotion. Now, I don't know that this particular font does that very much, okay? I don't think this font communicates that. This is very prim, very proper, etc. This is a classy kind of style font. Okay, for me that doesn't work from an emotion standpoint. Okay, so I would prefer to use, and then this is lighthearted. See, this doesn't work. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you got to know again, what's the question that we always have to do? What's always the question? Anybody remember what the question always is? You have to begin with the end in mind. When I understand that what I'm trying to communicate is, don't get hung up on the font because you'll drive yourself crazy. And if I'm trying to communicate that, then I'm going to pick a font that does that communicates that emotion. So let's take a look, and we'll try some of these out. This Kind of, but not really. It doesn't work for me. That font doesn't work for me most of the time. Doesn't communicate what I'm looking for. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you can just look at this and try to figure out how many of the, am I going to find something that's going to fit? Doesn't work. So I'm looking for something that's going to make my, and then of course I had this one saved down here. So now I know exactly what font I had. I had Helvetica, right? So we can go back over here and we can pick Helvetica. There we go. Does that make sense to everybody? Now we're going to play with layering for just a little bit, and again, this is where your tools become extremely beneficial. I want to size this to its original size. I have the original one right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the font in the back, and I'll pull this out, and I'm getting closer. You see how the layering tool helps you here? And we're almost there. I actually was going down the road the other day and I saw something on the back of somebody's truck that I took a picture of, and it will become next week's. It's going to be next week's image. I have been fascinated by the Thunderbird for my entire life, and I wanted to capture a Thunderbird picture that I could reproduce using Usign. So next week, I'm going to give you the Thunderbird design, and we're going to use this layering tool to make that work. Okay, so I have it on my phone. I haven't had a chance to download it to my computer yet, but you see what I'm talking. But you'll see what I'm talking about. So here's where that layering tool becomes important. Can you see how I can take this and I can now make that kind of a shadow? Do you understand? Okay, so I can do that. I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to show you how we can achieve that. I'm going to delete this one, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. Again, this is just using the tools that you have. And I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to erase the first part of the sentence. And I'm going to put font here. And now I know that this is going to be an exact match. Okay. So I can take this color. I can now make it black. And I can use it like this. But in the front, doesn't work. What I want to do is I want to instead take the layering tool and move it to the back. Okay. So now I have that. That's my font right there. And I can reposition this just a little bit. You can see how you can add a depth of field to that. Okay. That's using the layering tool. That makes sense to everybody? Somebody asked the question, why not just use, and it went away from me too fast, why not just use the shadow tool? Again, I'm not showing you the only way to do it. I'm showing you a way to do it. And there are lots and lots of ways to do this. Now, it's very important that you master multiple ways to accomplish the same thing. If you put yourself inside of a box and say, well, the way you do that is, rarely is that true. Most of the time it is, here is a way to do this. Okay. And you're exactly right, Gene. It's very difficult to move things that are in the back layer. So here's the challenge. What am I going to do if that thing's in the back layer? Because our layer tool is very limited. And Rose admits that in the article that she wrote. It is a very limited layer tool. So the thing to do when you do that, and the problem is going to be this, my black font word is going to be the same color or going to be exactly the same size. So trying to grab the handles is going to be virtually impossible. Now, I'll show you, we're not going to group it right now, and the reason is real simple. I'm going to move this over here, all right? I'm going to click on this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it to the front. Now I can move this over here, all right? And I can do that. If I want to maintain exactly the same position and I have to move them, I'm going to fix one of them, and then the other one I'm going to move on top of it. Now I can do this. Now I can take that and move it forward, and I can reposition it like this. Okay. Now the other thing is, if I just wanted to make this, give that a 3D dimension, the reason, if I just wanted to do this, okay, if I wanted to highlight just this word like I did with this 3D dimension, and I click on this and I shadow, look what happens. Put a color shadow on here. I'm sorry, that wasn't the shadow, I'm sorry. And a shadow, all of it gets shadowed. Does that make sense? So the layer tool, there's a lot of cool things that you can do with it, all right? I did this just because I was being goofy this morning, all right? And I was kind of in a hurry. If I wanted to make this look weird, I can do that. Now, that image, is that image on top or is it behind? Anybody know? It's behind, see? And is it important to have it behind? Let me do this. I can play with this layer tool, all right? I can move that back like that. Now I have it on the top, click on this, and I can move that backwards, and I can make that my shadow again, all right? I wanted to, and this really doesn't, this little thing right here doesn't really do what I wanted it to do, but you see the point in that, okay? So let me delete that, and let's go over here, and let me get a different element, all right? Let me grab this element right here, just for fun. I want to include this whole thing in this. It starts distorting my graphic a little too much, doesn't it? All right. Well, let's do this. We had this one down here. Whoops. We had this right here. Now watch what happens when I do this, okay? I have this. I'll make that a little bigger so I can stretch it out here. That's intended to be kind of a straight brush mark, okay? And if I'm going to use it as a thin line, I have to make sure that I get a little tail of this below it. But watch the difference that this makes, okay? Click on this one, and I'm going to move it backwards. Now look at the difference that it makes. Do you see the difference? See how much difference the subtle difference that layering tool can make? Did I lose y'all? Now I can make it this, all right? Let's take this right here and let's play with this for a minute. Let's take this, and what we're going to do now, We're going to add a shadow to it. And we're going to change the opacity of the shadow. We're going to move the distance out of that. And we'll put it like that. Okay. Does that change the meaning of it at all? Or the purpose of it at all? Or the focus of it at all? Looks like it's sitting on a shelf, right? Do you see what you can do with the layering tool and as well as the other things? And by sitting the Ys on the front, it looks like it's sitting on a shelf. Now, if I do this, and I've got that font on the back side, so let me get rid of that because it's going to give me a little distortion here, but I can do this. Now I've got that sitting here. I can make that look like it's a shelf that's coming out from the wall. Okay. And then all I have to do here now is make sure I'm on the sentence itself. And I'm going to take this shadow tool, and I'm going to turn a shadow on, and I'm going to make it go at the same angle that it is up there. All right. And now it looks like it's sitting on front of the shelf. Now, let me ask you this. I think this is really important, all right? I don't want you to forget this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn those two things I just turned on off. So let me turn those off. How many of you say, I'm not going to look at this one because it doesn't look like the other one? There really isn't any difference. I've added a few things, and that's pretty cool, right? But if this is catching my attention, this is going to catch my attention. And I do prefer the other one. And that's the reason why I went to the length of time that it took to do that. But again, you've got to figure out at what point, what's my return going to be, okay? I can do this in a matter of seconds, and it's not a big deal, all right? I have to turn that on, and it's not a big deal. I can do that. But if I had to position all of that stuff and do that, would I really do it? Probably not. Would it be worth it? Would it be worth the difference? Probably not. I agree, Mary. I just removed the line. It's how much difference does this make? We'll do this. How much difference does that make? Not really. But those are things that you can do. Doesn't mean you have to, but those are things that you can do. Now, one more thing, and we're going to wrap this up. And I did this one on purpose. Okay, I got a message from somebody the other day, and they said, "How do you?" He had 14 images that had to be sized the right size and put it in exactly the right spot. And they were pictures of people's faces in a circle. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a really, really simple way to do this. And he said, and I don't know who it was, he may be on this webinar, but he said, I actually saw you do that on the webinar. And I never thought about doing it in this case. So again, that's that creativity. You got to apply your creativity. You're learning these things for a reason. Okay. So if I want to take each one of these icons and cover this screen with this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate this because I've now got this one the size that it needs to be. So I'm going to duplicate that. I now have two of them, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit the replace tool right here, and I'm going to go over here and get the next one. Guess what size it is? It's the correct size. I'm going to duplicate that again. and I'm going to hit the replace tool, and I'm going to go over and get this one, and now it's the right size. I don't have to reposition every one of them. Does that make sense to everybody? So I can create every one of these. Whoops, I didn't do the replace tool. I can reproduce every one of these and not have to size but one of them. Let me ask you a question. How cool is that? Right? You want to be careful about polls now because Facebook is not happy with people soliciting a response. But here you can simply click on the replace and boom, there it is. I do this because I'm trying to help you to remember it, Sylvie. Very simple things. It's the simplicity that makes things work, folks. How easy is that? And hit the replace tool. So now I've positioned one of them, and all the rest of them, I clicked off the replace tool because my screen's jumping around. So back on here, the replace tool. See? How simple is that? And I'm going to do it one more time. This is my background image right here. All right. I'm going to go over and get a different background image. And with that, we'll be done. And what I'm going to do is hit the replace tool. I'm going to make sure I'm into my background. Hit the replace tool. And boom. There you go. All right, folks. Thank you so much for taking your time on this Friday to join us today. And I look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place. I'll make sure that my timer says the right thing. And we'll have another episode, another installment of Usign Friday webinar. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.